We're seeing a massive shift right now in terms of assets because you have places like New York, places like Chicago, places like Seattle, and especially all of California pretty much neglecting and just pretty much doing some of the dumbest stuff I've ever seen. I mean, several laws there are not in favor of a lot of corporations, small business owners, and small and large landlords. But at the same time, they love taxing. So it doesn't make any sense, right? You don't really like a lot of these businesses. You don't stand with them. But at the same time, you tax them very heavily. Of course, a lot of these firms now after the pandemic, they start thinking, oh, we don't have to stay in New York. We don't have to stay in Cali. We could go to Florida. This is what's happening, right? And this is going to cause a massive strain in places, especially in California, because they have the biggest exodus of people and companies. We're talking about Los Angeles. We're talking about San Francisco, San Jose, Oakland, and even like the Silicon Valley area, like Palo Alto, Mountain View, stuff like that, with several small VC firms, small hedge funds to big titans like Goldman, Wells Fargo, and Charles Schwab, all shrinking down offices and many moving to places like Miami, Tampa. These are the most popular places. And when California loses $1 trillion in managed assets, it's huge. We're not talking about itty bitty companies. We're talking about Elliott Management, Charles Schwab. A lot of these guys deal with, retirement plans and pretty much like billions and billions of people's dollars. And Charles Schwab is one of the ones that absolutely just went out. They're done. Charles Schwab has plans to cut jobs, close offices as downtown hits Wall Street. They're closing some of the biggest offices in the US, and more notably, they actually closed down many offices in San Francisco, which pretty much means that they're going to be saving $500 million a year just from all these cut real estate pieces and employee layoffs. So other banks right now, like JP Morgan and the brokerage firms like Interactive Brokers and even Robinhood are like, maybe we should move online and shrink down our offices. We'll definitely make even more money. And if Charles Schwab is saying they could save $500 million, well, we want to save that much money as well, maybe even more. So this is what's happening. And we're seeing a lot of these companies just pretty much closing down many offices in the US and just picking like a new HQ, right? You also see departures like, Alliance Bernstein. These guys are massive. They have thousands and thousands of employees. They deal with money markets, stocks, you name it, everything in the sky. And they're moving to places like Florida. And we're seeing a massive collapse in real estate in places like San Francisco, in places like Los Angeles, and places like Brooklyn, Manhattan. A lot of these real estate prices are no longer going up. And especially in San Francisco, for example, real estate prices are dropping a lot. And even though they're dropping, a lot of people are like, oh, prices are dropping. Guess what? It's time to buy. Absolutely not. All right. Prices are dropping in San Francisco. I don't encourage you to buy these properties at all. The bottom isn't in. There's more and more people flowing out. And not to mention, you're not going to attract any investors when none of the laws help the landlords. Okay, I hate to say this, but one of the reasons why property prices are holding so stable in a lot of areas in Florida is because a lot of the laws are pretty normal. Okay, if the tenant doesn't pay rent, they kind of have to leave. Not like the Bay Area in California. Oh, tenant doesn't pay rent, they stay there for 3 to 4 years while the owner pays property tax and damages. Oh, you rented this condo out in Oakland? Yeah, the owner is literally doing Airbnb, right? The renter is doing like short-term rentals while like the landlord is paying for taxes, stuff like that. Like a lot of these laws are just not in favor of small landlords and small business owners, especially in Cali. So we're seeing a lot of these companies just leaving, right? Even big banks are starting to notice that the economy of California is just slowly going downhill with some of the biggest tech companies and tech events just simply moving out. And Wells Fargo is already preparing to shrink offices, just like Charles Schwab, and they're pretty mad that their building price are just going into the dirt because they bought this almost 2 decades ago. You would think that a property that you bought 2 decades ago will pretty much like 3 to 4x in price, but no, Wells Fargo's lost 60% of the value of this building. Okay, that's insane. That doesn't make any sense. They acquired this for $110 million in 2005. Now they sold it for $40-ish million. They originally listed for $160 million to make a slight profit, but nobody will bite for $160 million. They sold this for $40 million. That's pathetic. This is such a nice building in a nice place in downtown. Like before the pandemic, this was a building that would have easily been rented out. Like before the pandemic, San Francisco had less than 1% vacancies, and people were willing to put up with some of this crap. But now with the rise of remote work, and also companies start noticing that they could be more flexible in terms of headquarters and HQ, even Tesla moved out to Austin. We're seeing guys like the banks who used to be very conservative. They're like, okay, I open a headquarters here. I'm staying here for the rest of my life. But now you're seeing a lot of big banks are no longer being very conservative in terms of HQs and locations. They start noticing, okay, maybe we should go to Miami, the Wall Street of the South. It's just so much better. Climate's better, less crime. The laws and taxes are in favor of corporations, which is the only way if you want to save to get rich, right? If you want great infrastructure, if you want great care, if you want great public services, you want corporations to be there. This is why San Francisco's public services are so down bad. Okay, you don't want to go to San Francisco. It just looks like this 24/7 all the time. And look at all these high-end stores. And this is not a bad neighborhood. This is actually a pretty high-end neighborhood before the pandemic. And this is what it looks like at night. People doing drugs, there's tents everywhere, homeless people sleep on the ground, and the city just doesn't care. Look at all this high-end retail space. They're all completely empty except for like these small grocery stores and maybe like a pawn shop or something like that. But majority of these stores are very high-end. That used to be clothing stores, high-end grocery stores, art museums are all closed down. And it's very sad to see a situation because this type of situation is happening in many of the very left-leaning cities in the U.S. Go to Miami, you would not see just tents everywhere and just people doing fentanyl everywhere. That's just not a thing over there. Look at the amount of car break-ins in San Francisco. So many cars, windows are just being broken in. Just another day in San Francisco, tourists don't even want to be here anymore, right? If you have any sort of tiny little thing in your car, they'll just steal it. And it sucks for a lot of these, vacation guys. Their laptop, passports, even their medicine got stolen. This is absolutely crazy. And you kind of see why, tourists don't really want to be here. It's the word of mouth. They leave, they go home, and they hate the city. And they're like, yeah, I'm never coming back. When you type in San Francisco, you only see bad stuff, even on social media. So, San Francisco, it could be a very good city, right? California could be a very good state if they don't have some of these insane laws that really don't make any sense. I think they're just a little bit too progressive in my eyes. So, this is why, big cities are losing billions, even trillions of dollars to places like Florida and Texas and Nevada. Manhattan's still doing okay. It still has a lot of big banking corporations. There's still inflow of people going into Manhattan, but like places like San Francisco, Los Angeles, we're seeing the massive outflow of individuals. People just don't want to stay here anymore. People just prefer a place like Florida and Texas so much more. Ask the young people, ask the people in college. A lot of the banking guys are like, yeah, Miami seems to be such a great place. It's clean, great weather, the beach. Housing is expensive, but not like New York City and San Francisco expensive. And after you buy a condo, you could enjoy a lot of the really great city amenities as well. So thanks for watching, guys, and see you later.